Azur Lane is in some hot water with the internet for a crazy reason. Technically speaking, people are upset for two huge reasons. Azur Lane is a relatively popular gacha game, and although I have some significant issues with these styles of games, many people still enjoy playing them. This game, in particular, is precisely what you think. It is an anime-style game, and they lean heavily into fan service. This means plenty of attractive girls in often revealing outfits. As you can imagine, this game style is a prime target for Twitter weirdos and game journalists. These style of games often get slapped with terrible names and labeled as highly sexist. Despite this, the player bases for many of these titles remain incredibly high. Azur Lane is not exempt from this criticism and is going through a heated online discussion. In defense of the crazy people, in this case, there are certainly reasons for this discussion taking place. While I do not agree with some of the outrage, it is clear that the developers of this title wanted this type of reaction. Azur Lane released an all-new character design, and they went all out with the visual imagery. The character in question has outrageously large breasts, and they did not hold back with the jiggle physics either. The reveal of this character sparked some severe outrage, and as always, people took it too far. They wrote horrible messages to the developers, some even made severe death threats. The big question now becomes, is all the outrage warranted? Or is the internet simply overreacting again? Without spoiling the lead, allow me to give you a simple answer to the question. As with most internet tantrums, the current outrage is certainly not warranted. The number of death threats the developer received on Twitter because of this is insane. People were completely losing their minds and talking about how sexist the game is. The most popular narrative floating around was that the developer was a man who had never seen a woman before. You probably know where I am going with this, but the creator of Azur Lane is a woman. This information did not stop the online community from going after her. They said that she was profoundly catering to men. While I also believe she is catering to men, people's shift when they discovered that the developer was a woman was interesting to observe. At first, she was labeled a sexist man. Then the narrative went deeper as people started to blast all men as pigs for designing characters like this. Once people found out that the creator of Azur Lane was a woman, people quickly changed their tune. Furthermore, some people were upset as they stated that the developer was disrespecting their culture. One person took to Twitter and said that they had some Japanese heritage, and while they were born in America, they still took offense to the game. While that person's feelings are valid, I must point out a flaw again. This game is not Japanese, it is Chinese. All of this proves where this outrage is coming from. People spit out any nonsense and want to be offended about anything. As stated, I believe this developer knows exactly what she is doing. She created this game for one particular reason. She knows her audience and caters to them in an obvious way. This style of game has a large male following, and creating beautiful female characters in revealing positions is exactly what this fan base wants. She knows this, and she is leveraging that for monetary gain. If the audience enjoys this, I do not see any problem here. Allow people to play the game that they want to play. The developer has the right to create any crazy game she wants. As a consumer, you have the right not to play the game. If you think it is degenerate, skip the game and move on to something else. There are plenty of games that I think are stupid or insensitive, and I skip those games. What I don't do is send the developer death threats on Twitter and demand that no one should be allowed to play the game because I find it offensive. This specific character design is outrageous. It is over the top, and you are allowed not to like it. However, I think that was the goal. Have people talk about this character design. Through doing this, people will find the game and discover the other more normal-looking characters. It is a classic tactic, and we see it happen constantly. Baldur's Gate 3 recently did a very similar thing. They added a ridiculous scene where you can sleep with a bear. They know it was crazy, and that is the point. In that instance, of course, the media and the crazy people celebrated this fantastic thing. A big argument for why some are against video game girls in revealing clothes is that they say it can lead to destructive behavior. Young men play with these girls in video games, then go into the real world and treat women poorly. This is an argument that is as old as time. In the 80s and 90s, there was massive debate about violence in movies. Some government officials argued that violent movies lead to real-world problems. They made the same arguments against 90s gangster rap. When GTA was released, we saw similar arguments. Violence in video games leads to violence in real life. This argument is constantly made despite no evidence to back it up. The strange part is that the people who pushed back against these arguments are now saying the same thing but against sexual content. The truth is this specific character design in Azur Lane is objectification. Pretending that it is not will be dishonest. That would be the same as saying GTA is not violent. It clearly is. However, the conclusion that people draw afterward is incorrect. The violence in the game does not lead to real-life violence, and the sexualization of characters does not lead to real-world objectification. Countless studies have been done on this issue, and the result has always been consistent. Maybe it will change, but we are not there yet. People like to talk out of both sides of their mouths. They have a specific narrative in their mind and will stop at nothing to prove it. Anime girls lead to degeneration, thus, we need to remove it everywhere, but the gay bear love is okay. To be clear, it is fine, but so is everything else. In the spirit of fairness, it goes both ways. Many people who agree that sexy anime girls are okay are the same people who mentally break down when they see a gay or trans person in a video game. They will be swift to judge them as grooming the children. Two guys kissing is unnecessary sexualization, but the crazy anime girl with overly large breasts is great. The solution here is simple. Publishers should be allowed to do what they want, and you should be able to decide what you want to consume. If you think certain games are sexualizing women and believe it is wrong, skip the game. If a publisher introduces a bunch of pronouns that go against your views, you have the right to say no thank you and skip the game. Tell your piece and move on if you think a game is too woke or conservative. You have the right to complain about things you do not like. I do it all the time. This entire channel is nothing but irrelevant complaining. But once we are done complaining, we allow people to play what they want in peace. Let the people in Starfield choose their pronouns, and those in Azur Lane select their character models. If you disagree, voice your complaints, express yourself without harassing others, and move on. You can criticize and make fun of whoever you want at the end of the day, we also need to know where the line is. I like to make fun of Disney for their horrible live-action movies. When one of the actors says something stupid, I criticize them, but I do not make death threats and harass them on Twitter, and I do not demand that no one is allowed to see the movie because I disagree with the casting.